I was wondering, what could I offer in the way of comfort for people today? But people have to find their own comfort. And when your practice is working for you, when things don't go the way you need them to go, when they don't go the way you expect them to go. What rises up in the mind consciousness at that time lets you know where you are on the map. And so I really didn't expect anyone in our sangha to be in a place of uh, being downtrodden, because we understand causality, we understand cause and effect. And I was rejoicing because of yesterday. Was it yesterday we had? When were he here last?
Yeah,
That was
yesterday.
yesterday. It's getting to be every day. Yesterday when we had our Dharma discussions, I could really see the growth and the progress. Sometimes we don't think we're making that much progress. But when things come into our life, how they impact us lets us know where we really are. And if you have that kind of Buddha light that's only gonna support you when things are going good, then you're not gonna be able to enter into the nibbana that is here present right now all the time. Because our perspective of how we hold life is mind conceived. And so when one's mind is perturbed, one has to look not at the outer perturbation. Is that a word?
It sounds.
It sounds like, yeah. But what state is the mind in? Because to be in a space of peace or a space of freedom or a space of clear seeing or a place of acceptance um, requires that one not take the information that comes in through the sense gates and qualifies the experience, but one can determine or develop or cause an experience based on the quality of their mind. And so this practice is not designed to reinforce our mind, but it's designed to provide a roadmap for the mind, like a rail for the mind to ride upon, so that it can enter into the state of nibbana. So there's a difference between nibbana and enlightenment, the way we think of total unbinding. Nibbana has to do with the state of the mind and the mind consciousness in a way that it is not moved or perturbed by outer experiences, but outer experiences get interpreted through the lens of the mind, through the lens of the still mind. And that's really what the 84,000 practices are for, or methods are for, to help you work with your own mind. So I'm not concerned. Could I say that I had some disappointment? I think I could say that I had some disappointment, but a whole lot of people were elated. Just my disappointment isn't the be all and the end all. So um, finding that place of impartiality helps us at times like this. You know, when we have some anxiety about the way something is happening, and we think that this is going to be a bad thing, but that we don't know. That's what's in our mind. We say, well, I can look at what happened before, and I can tell you, like if you got the same mind, history is going to repeat itself. But I'm not worried about one person and how one person feels. I'm worried about how many people got in America, 300 million, 150 million people. how 150 million people think, not how one person thinks, you know. And we never know, uh, based on signs, what could be planned or what could happen that's worse. I mean, we could have found ourselves in a civil war today if the outcome had been different. Are you ready for that? And so we have to find a different way of being in the world when things don't go the way we want them to go. And we can get to that place that our minds are not perturbed. We know we can roll up our sleeves and get ready to put all that energy lamenting, all that energy and anxiety, we can roll up our sleeves and be prepared to do some useful work in the world starting today, you know. And the reason that I had that song is talked about sweet surrender. That's all that I have to give. So it's non-discriminating mind. I mean, me and Buddha didn't get together and decide what satisfactory to me, and that becomes, the Dharma. There is the Dharma, and my personal satisfaction really doesn't have a lot to do with it. Um, this life is going to be based on what I do with it. And so we can take times like this when we are disappointed, instead of fear mongering or being influenced by the fears of others. We can put it into its context. We can put it into its place. You know, we I consider, and maybe not as much as I used to, but I consider a birth in the United States a fortunate rebirth, but not in all ways, you know. But if I had to pick somewhere else, I don't think I could pick a place. You know, I could have been born in Africa. I could have been born in Russia. I could have been born in China. I could have been born, and then I would be subject then to the conditions of those places. And so I find myself born here. I'm subject to the conditions of here. Full stop. Just put a period behind it. And and if we hold life in this way, we won't be afraid of what the next moment brings. Um, so um, next week, I think next week, I've been asked to speak at in Asheville, and I was saying like I don't know what I can say to them because they haven't had the training that my sangha has had. You know, it's going to take time to establish a view, and kind of bring them into. But with my own song, I know the training that you've had, so I know sort of how your mind inclines. If it didn't incline in a certain way, I tell you, you wouldn't be sitting here now. A lot are gone because there was a difference in the not just the mind stream, but the way in which the mind wants to incline. So if we want to incline to peacefulness, if we want to incline to stillness, to stopping, if we want to incline to clarity, then there's some principles we have to govern our life by. And when our thinking runs up against or knocks up against those principles, then what we do, what our practice is to sit with the principles until they wash over us and we penetrate to the truth of the principles. And then we find that kind of resolute, clear thinking, able to be available and of use in the present moment, on the basis of the supreme principles of the universe, how the universe operates. This is not some kind of it's hard to describe what Dharma is, but it's like the truth of the universe, where we can speak about it in religious terms, we can speak about it, in scientific terms, we can speak about it in prajna terms, in wisdom terms. but it is not any of those things that we speak of it as. It becomes, it transforms into something that we need in the moment to dispel our ignorance. And if we will allow it to do that, then we have the freedom and the liberty that it offers. So, so I was thinking about the talks that we've been having the last couple of days, and in imparting, Buddha Master talks about the three kinds of prajna, and we've been like sort of unpacking this bit by bit, or uh, well, I guess it's not a good example for Buddhists, but I'm gonna use it anyway. You know, like you're in the deli and okay, I'll use cheese. You're in the deli and and you pick the cheese and they have the block of cheese and you can tell them how thin you want it sliced, so you can have thick slices, you can have thin slices. And I like the kind of almost shaved, almost like paper thin kind of cheese. And so the Dharma is like this. You can have it thick or you can have it thin sliced, but the thinner the slices get, the less you can define them in absolute terms. And that's what causes most of our suffering, is that we're so absolute in things. We call the Dharma dogmatic, but it's not that the Dharma is dogmatic, it's that we're dogmatic. And so when the beauty and the gift of putting the teachings into practice is that you have the capacity to shave the cheese, like, so that it's so thin that you can almost see through it. And that's when you're starting to get somewhere in the practice. It becomes not as easy to define, but to ones who encounter it and experience the truth of it, it doesn't need definition. When they would ask the Buddha about things, he would say, "Ehipassiko, come see for yourself," and that you would have to put it into practice to see the kind of relief, the kind of release that it brings, the kind of information that cannot be reduced to words. And so he talks about language prajna, and he says, like we're bound in this view that causes us to constantly suffer when we don't get what we want, or when we lose what we had, or when your view doesn't align with mine, or when I'm fearful that you might hurt me, or just any kind of state that the mind is in flux. And it doesn't just have to be around what things that we would call bad. It's always also around things that we call good. The mind is still agitated. And so there is a space where the mind can stop. And when that mind stops, our vision, we have like it's a vast, magnanimous kind of vision that can actually take in and hold and consider and find some wisdom to move beyond where we have our differences of view that are based on our differences in life experience. So I would say that for some people who've had life in a certain way, that they never had to worry about certain things, when situations shift and they begin to feel unsafe, it's very difficult to know how to cope with it because you haven't had to. But for some who have had a lifetime of situations and environments where they had to be very careful in what they did, what they said, how they said it, who they said it to, where they went, you know, um, then there is some strength that develops in your character that allows you to respect others in the same way that you respect yourself. And then your mind can be fashioned or directed towards usefulness instead of fear mongering. That's what I'm saying is available to you today. That we do not have an infinite amount of energy. We are finite in this makeup, in this embodiment. And so be careful how you use your energy. Be careful how you incline your mind. And if we train our minds, and that's what, that's why we call this like training methods, then the mind will automatically incline in a certain direction. The mind will automatically, and then you're not trying to make something happen. But you know what? You got to learn how to swim before you jump or get pushed into the deep end. That's not the time to learn. And so if you haven't been really putting your effort before, now might be a little bit difficult with you, but that's when you swim with swimmers. So if you align yourself with someone who knows how to swim, at least you have a little confidence that when you get unsteady or when you think you're going down, you can reach out and you can be touched by them and you can be sustained. And what they will simply say is, don't struggle. Don't struggle. Just relax and find out how the water, even the waters of life, have the capacity to buoy you so that you can rise above them. Now, that's my theology, if you will, around Dharma. And that I can tell you from direct experience works for you. But if whatever your idea of it is not working for you, then you need to get a different view or find a different philosophy or theology, because whatever you take up should be able to work for you. So I want got him. So he tells us that we all have this Buddha nature that's been obscured by our hindrances and by the information that we have perceived or taken to be true through the five aggregates, what we see here, taste, touch, smell, and think, and including our form, feeling, perception, consciousness, and mind objects, right? So we can like just rattle that stuff off like it's real, but the truth of it manifesting as reality in your life depends upon the actions that you take. So he says we all have this Buddha nature, right? And he's talking about doctrine now. This is with thinking, right? If you want to cause your natural nature to emerge, you just need to know specific methods. And these methods are the 84,000 Dharma methods that the Buddha imparted. So the Pure Land School has its methods, the Chan School has its methods, esoteric schools have their methods, Theravada School has its methods, the Mahayana School has its methods, the Consciousness Only School has its methods. All of these are specific methods of studying theories to progress and advance to the realization of them by putting them into practice, only by putting them into practice. And there takes something else, and that is where we fall short, particularly in this country, because we just want to pick the methods for something that works and that gives me a little bit of relief, right now from the vicissitudes of life. That's what I want. But the methods cannot be divorced from certain things in order to be effective. They cannot be. So that would be precept observances, right? Jhana, wisdom, faith, vows, and practice. So it takes all 6 of those aspects for you to have success. It's like I want to go from here to there, and it takes a car, and I have a car, but it ain't got no gas. You know, or I have a car, but it has a flat tire, and I don't have a spare. Or I've got, so, or I don't have a car, but I have a bicycle. It's gonna take me longer, but I can get there by bike. I have 2 feet. I can walk. I can walk there. All of them can perhaps get you there, but some are going to take longer than others. Some you're going to have to depend on the kindness of somebody coming by to help you fix the flat. I remember I had a flat tire on my way to Dharma, and I'm always running late getting to Dharma because I start getting ready too early, then I have time and don't waste your time. And then I'll start reading something. The next thing you know, 30 minutes passed, and I thought it was 5 minutes. And so I'm on that, what's that, State Street? Yes, State Street. I'm flying, I'm flying, and I'm saying, oh, I hope they have a different officer out there today, because, they're going to give me a ticket after a while. I can't keep saying like, I was rushing to get the Dharma and I'm late. And where's your driver's license? I left it at home. What's your name? Let me go. I know who you are. Slow down. Okay. I'll slow down. So I'm flying, right? And all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. I said, oh no. So then I have to call and say I have a flat tire. And the guy came over and they helped me with the tire. Okay, so that works okay one time, But I said, so now I need to be able to take care of myself. So I went and I bought the thing that Rob had, which was it came and it pumped up the tire while I was right there. It was only $26. For $26, I got to get 3 people to come out and jack up a tire, all that for $26. So now I have one in my car. I recommend everybody get one. So blown out. Yeah. I got it right there from the AutoZone. I said, a guy helped me with a flat tire, and I need what he has to keep in my car. He said, "Oh, you just need this." I said, "Oh, great! How much is it?" $26. And so I bought it. But that's like taking responsibility for oneself. And now that stressor right there, that one is gone. Now I might have some other problem that happens, but not that one. That one I can take care of. And so in this way, we learn to take care of that which stresses our own mind. Nobody can do that for us. I have to know my stressor, and I have to come up with a method to alleviate it, a method to uproot it, a method that allows me to be able to be with it, not pretend it doesn't happen, it never happened, or it won't happen, but if it does happen, I have some remedy. Now, if something turns out, like first I got home and I left it home for a week. It was sitting in my house. And I'm like, one day I was like, that should be in the car. Unless I'm gonna call somebody, can you look in my room and bring the tire? So I put it in the house. I got it all together now, but this is how we grow. I mean, seriously, around things is we have the stillness to look and see, how do I handle this? How do I handle what's perturbing me? And can I handle it? If I can't, nothing to do about it, then I'll call somebody, And so we don't have to have, if we have Dharma, we won't have drama. So we choose Dharma or drama. And once you've had a taste of the kind of peace in the midst of any situation, I mean, you actually just don't even like the drama anymore. I always talk about mystery, and we talk about the mysteries, and mystery just means I don't understand how it works yet. But once we understand how it works, then mystery can have its work upon it. And we can touch some ground of being that is not ordinary, that is not common, you know, that is not without accomplishment, that is vast and inclusive, and we can endure another day in samsara. So someone told me today, what was his name? That Noah called this the United States of samsara, the United States of samsara. I'm laughing, it ain't funny, but I'm so much at ease with it, the United States of samsara. Oh, that's so right, you know. And first, I have gratitude because I could be some other places, that I'm not. Um, at least I can see some hope, because the hope is in me. I see some space for improvement because I have space to improve. What about you? I see some space for there to be a shift or change, because I am open to a shift or change. I'm open to listening to you. We obviously missed something, people are crying out and they're flailing, they're like drowning, going down for the third time, and what kind of life raft will I throw out? Sometimes we win by losing. Without having a mind of winning, we can open up a space where there can be right view, right thought, right action, but we have to be willing to give up our attachments to it. Sometimes, like, when you're having a discussion or conversation with someone, it didn't start as an argument. You don't come in, let's argue. It starts as a conversation around something. And after a while, like, you just really trying to get your point across. And they're really trying to say, you're not listening to me. I'm saying this, but what's important to you is getting your point, but you're not hearing me, not listening with the heart to what I'm saying. Or sometimes we are, but we're trying to convince them, here, you take my eyeball and see it the way I see it. And so we get into a myopic space, and our view or our agenda becomes primary. We didn't mean for it to be, because we started off trying to be helpful. We started off listening until, like, I disagree with that part. And then we started bringing up our points of view. And then that could be okay. We can share two different points of view. But then when, like, yours is just wrong, and I might think it's just wrong, but sometimes you can't say everything you think, only because it's not going to bring about the result that you want. It's not going to bring about the highest and the best result. You have to say something in a way sometimes that leaves the door open, that you can come back again and bring up the topic again. Who knows what they may have encountered between then and or now and then that might change the view that they had before, or might make them open to hearing something that they hadn't heard before, or maybe even think that you really care about them or their situation. I mean, I am trying to sit with how and where I have been, or I might have been, unskillful in making, say, women feel valued and heard. I'm so much so that you could stand on their neck and they could be okay with that. I'm trying to find out, just looking at myself now. I'm not looking at anybody else now, what anybody else said, what anybody else has done, but I'm looking to see where I may have been deficient in truly apprehending their sense of dissatisfaction or self-denigration, that someone could speak to them in certain ways and they say he's my protector. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure this out. Sometimes we just have to stop. We can't just go on with our bandstand, you know, we have to stop talking and we have to reflect. And I tell you, if we can do that, it will allow things to settle for us. It's like having a stick and stirring it around in the pond, and it stirs up the mud. You look in, you can't see your reflection, but if you stop stirring and just give it a while, the mud will drop to the bottom. You look at, and you'll see a clear image. I want to see myself in every person, and that's the truth. And so rather than me point fingers outward, this is a time I feel that we can be reflective. No, and we have to see things bigger than just what happens in my household, just what happens with people of my color, just what happens with people of my gender, just what happens in my neighborhood, just what happens in my country, just what happens, uh, we have to have a larger view. And that's why the Buddha talked about the middle way. And he didn't mean right here at the middle, but he talked about just standing at the tip of the precipice, perched, so that you have a full panorama of what's going on. And then you can find places where you can be skillful, places where you can't be skillful, leave it alone. Places where you can, then you can do that. And when you do, you find a sense of purpose in your life. We all don't have to try to do the same things. I could never be a politician, and I think it would be difficult for a politician to be a Dharma teacher. But we still all serve our purposes in this conventional world, you know. So just be the best that you could be at what your talents and what your skills are. And I'll tell you, if you abide in that, then not only will you abide in safety, but you'll have a sense of peace, and you know how to answer every man. Um, But this kind of language that we use, we call it like language prajna, the teachings of the great saints, the great sages, the great bodhisattvas, not just within Buddhism, but I mean, Buddhism is a label, so you certainly have to go beyond the label. If you stuck at the label, you just caught the wrong train. But those who walk in with a certain quality, and a capacity for engaging with another, and for being able to engage with oneself. It's I've been doing a lot of inner reflection. Um, Well, I was saying I've been preparing to die, but I just said that somebody like, she ain't gonna die for 10 years. But I mean, like it can happen anytime. You don't have to be as old as I am. But I'm just saying, I'm like Martin Luther King, I've been to the mountaintop and I looked over, so I feel that it is um not imminent, but no time to look in the past, but to be very present with now, in preparation for going forward. So a lot of things have been coming up for me, and they're not that comfortable. I'm like, dang, I'm not sure I know myself at all, because some of the things that have been coming up for me have only started coming up because I now have certain principles rooted in my heart that makes those very things I look at have a different appearance, you know. So we have a mantra that we do like before we put our shoes on in the morning. Um, and because this is like, okay, you take the vow, you don't kill living beings. You go around, I don't kill living beings, you know. So if you kill, you know, every time you breathe, you're killing some beings, you know, beings all in your body, you know, every time you diet or whatever, like you're killing beings. I mean, we're like just a universe for other beings to feed off of when you really look at it, you know. And so I'm like, there's no way out of this. So Buddha says, but you know, like if you don't do it with intention, then, you know, then that's not breaking the precept of not killing. So if that's the case, then why do we say the mantra, you know, for killing, removing the harm of killing living beings when we like step on ant or whatever, you know? So what's the purpose? If there's no karmic retribution for that because it wasn't intentional. You know, it says, but the fact is that it still happened. You know, and having some sensitivity to the fact that it still happens, even if it wasn't intentional, sets one up with a certain kind of attitude of how they walk through the day. If one was even conscious of that, how much more conscious would we be about how we speak and how we carry ourselves in front of people? So this kind of transformation that takes place in us is through our actions, but what motivates our actions or gives our actions their quality is understanding the precepts and abiding by them. So they're the observing the precepts, uh, the jhana. You can't like just sit and tell your mind to be still. Your mind becomes still when one has lessened one's attachments that draw their mind in every direction. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to be still, and suddenly, you know, and I might even be getting still, but then I might hear Teo, right? And so I'm like, oh no, Teo disturbed me. But you see, it's not Teo disturbing you. It's like your mind got bored, was sitting here with nothing. It went out looking for something, and it found Teo's voice. It's like the mind goes out, you see. And so there is a place that one can be in where they're not perturbed, but if you have never touched that place, you might think one doesn't care, you see. And so I was sitting saying, how shall I come to Dharma? You know, it's not good for a monk. But you know, sometimes I watch TV and there's this commercial and it says shingles doesn't care, you know. And it's so helpful to me, you know, when I'm starting to take things personally, or I'm starting to feel, you know, like why is he peeing on me and saying it's rain, or you know, something like that. And then I just think like shingles doesn't care, and I'm done. I'm good. I'm good after that. And so you use these. That's a kind of precept observance. You know, it takes on an action process, is what I'm saying, and it cuts your craving or your ignorance at the root right then, right there. So if you don't have any catchy phrases for yourself, you should get some. Because they're very helpful. Everything doesn't have to be like shanti shanti. I mean, you can like just take up some things that even give you like a a break from being so hard on yourself. They can just give you a moment of ease, a moment of levity. And so that's what uh, how we work with our practices. So now the wisdom, when you're going from ignorance You can't just go from ignorance to wisdom. That's like, like Superman, and he takes a giant leap and leaps over the tall mountains, or what is it, skyscrapers in one leap, something like that. But there is a step-by-step process by which we begin to gradually shift the mind, gradually see something. It's like having a light like that has a dimmer switch, and you can see something and you kind of get the gist of it. And so it's partially useful for you. But as you turn that dimmer switch and the room gets lighter and lighter, then you can see more clearly what something is. All of this is work that we do by ourselves. That's why I'm busy all day, because all day I'm looking. I'm looking to see how this comes about. How? Not why. Why did this happen to me? But how does this come about? And just sitting, waiting for the answer, because the answer has to rise up in me. It has to be my answer. And so we can throw out some suggestions, some ideas, and we'll say, like, just think about that. Ponder on that. And then when you sit and you ponder on something for a while, then he said, let it go. Don't spend too much time, because then you're just going to get into the thinking mind, and it's gonna do what it's always done. He says, but turn your attention to, pose the question, look and see if the way you think about it really is true. So, and then let it go. There's nothing else you can do with that, but gradually, as you keep looking, as you keep looking, as you keep looking, it's like turning that dimmer switch up, light, brighter and brighter. And suddenly you can see everything in the room. It's, oh my goodness. Like I understand it differently now, you know. Not I had an epiphany. I said, oh, I understand it differently now, you know. And sometimes you don't even realize that you understand it differently until somebody comes at you with that same way, that same attitude. Instead of you feeling like you're gonna knock that block off, you're like, you could just be with it, or you could even have some sympathy. I mean, or you could say you don't have to leave mad, but you do have to go. You could, you could just be with what's called for in that moment without having such it holding you so tightly, so personally. So these are what a lot of our practice methods help us to be able to do. Now, there is another aspect of it, and that is taking up vows. And vow is like when you make a vow to yourself. Even if you say, I vow before the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and you too, that I'm going to do this or be like that. I mean, that says job, job, job. When you make a vow, you make a vow to yourself. If you keep the vow or don't keep the vow, you keep it or don't keep it to yourself. Now it might affect me, but as a vow is something that you make um, to yourself. And if you want to call for a witness, you can call for a witness, but you have to know that a vow you make unto yourself. So there's no point in making vows that you don't want to keep. There's no point in making, because it's not a true vow. So it doesn't give you the stamina, the impetus. It doesn't give you the energy, the conviction. It doesn't give you the aspiration. It doesn't give you anything to walk in it. If it's one you don't want to make, just don't make it. You know. But when you do make it, with a sincere heart, then when you start vectoring off or running afoul of the vow, you say, oh, you know, I made a vow to myself. And when we don't keep our vow, then he says, rather than flagellate ourselves, we can look and see how we could be better at keeping. What preliminary things do I need to do? And we can understand that if we, with all of our heart, want to keep it and can't, then maybe we just don't have the mind that has entered into that space that it can carry it out. I might want I might want to buy a Lamborghini, but if I look at my bank account and I don't have enough to buy it, then there's no point in saying, oh, flagellating myself and saying I'm a failure. You just don't have the money to buy it right now. That's why you know, and I could say, okay, then when I get the money, if I want to buy it, I can buy it. And so sometimes we work with ourselves in a way that is harmful, and that is just a matter of not knowing principles and uh, and grasping for things that uh, is not the time for us to step into. Such as I have, I freely give. Wonder if you could think about that as you move about through your day, and what you offer to people, what you offer to the spaces that you come into. What kind of peace you have. So he says, you must go beyond words to where the path of language is cut off, where you yourself directly attain realization and awakening. Here, I'm telling all of you that to realize your original nature, your awakened nature, your Buddha nature, the Dharma-kai, you must cut off the path of language and extinguish attachment to mental activity. When something is happening in our life that perturbs us because we have an attachment to something, it's hard to say, that you have to cut off thinking. It's like, no, this is not the time to not think. This is the time to think. And so it becomes difficult for us. But he tells us right there is where the realms collide. And if you want to pass through that ordinary barrier to a place of accomplishment, right there is where one has to cut the cord of their activity. He says that's mental activity. And mental activity actually precedes, bodily activity. It's just that it occurs so fast, that we can't even put time on a nanosecond, whatever comes before a nanosecond. I remember one time about the smallest thing they had was atoms, and then they came up with something else. I think it's called quarks or something. And then they came up with something smaller than that, and there's no telling what they got in science, because the last time I took a science class was 7th grade. So, but all of these things, they didn't just come into being. We just realized. We just discovered them through some means. And so I know that there is a higher path or path of higher learning that is available to us that does nothing but reveals what is right here in front of us if we have eyes to see. And in order for that kind of vision, to manifest, it takes the stopping of the ordinary mind. The ordinary mind is tied up with me and mine. And that's hard for us to do, because this is, if I'm not me, who am I? That's the first thing the mind says. If you're not who are you? So it becomes difficult for the mind to conceive that I'm not me. So I say, I am me, but I'm not me as I suppose I am. And I can just start with that much. Can I take that step? And then I take another step, and begin to break down how I have understood things, how I've understood the nature of reality. And bit by bit, my mind gradually shifts. And then it will be as important for me to care about you in the same way that I care about myself. It'll be important for me, and I can feel your pain the way I feel my own pain. Now, he doesn't say that we don't feel. He just says we're not what? Attached to the feeling. And so that's a step that we get to. It's not where we ultimately end, but that's if you get to that place that you can feel and yet not be attached to it, you know you've made some progress. But later on, you'll get to the place that certain things, they just cannot rise. You know, I just can't rise. I mean, so sometimes, particularly, having gone through with deliberation and attention, gone through the death of someone that I loved very much, and I mean, like, it's okay when your parents die or whatever, like that's your family, so you already got at least a blood connection and you feel something, you know. But when you make enter into a deliberate kind of relationship, with someone, like stranger, not from your house, and you come to really know that person, and that person that you care about dies, then you have to figure out how you're gonna work with this letting go. And it's not the same as family. It might equate to daughter. I haven't had a child that died. I'd say it would have to rank right up there with losing a child. But your parents, like, they old, they're gonna die soon. So you don't feel as much. It's like get them out their misery, out their pain almost. It's like I can tell you it's true. Aching every day. It's the body. You will grow old, get sick, and grow cold. And so I can kind of be with that. Don't want them to suffer, and there's no joy of life, and the things that make life worth living. But but I paid attention to that experience and what was happening every day, and I had to rely on Dharma principles to carry me. Because sometimes within my own self, I would think, I don't know how I'm going to make it. And if you think that you don't know how you're going to make it, then you will walk out those actions that say, I can't make it. I can't make it. So as soon as something came up like that for me, like, oh, you miss Panya, I put up, I like, not really. Not really. No, it's just something in my mind, just a trigger, a memory, the smell of something, the way something is said. Those are just memories that's in the mind. And when I say, oh yeah, just a memory in the mind. And then instantly I was out. But if I wanted to stay in, I could stay in because we choose. We're choosing today and going forward for a while after, the outcome of this election. We're going to have to be careful of our choices. But however they affect you, know that you're choosing. And sometimes we choose and we can't do any better than that. Then your consolation is right now, I can't do any better than that because my mind is not at the state that I can open that door and enter into that realm of peace or of understanding or of compassion, And I'm not just talking about peace and understanding and compassion, because there's times of walking slow or running fast. You have to know what time it is, and what you need to do. So don't make it like everything is soft and sappy and powerless. It's not like that. But as you start to go through it, you will know when it's time to run slow or run fast, and when it's time to walk slow, so that everything is done at the right time for the right reason with the right person in the right situation. And that's the wisdom coming forth. Now that kind of wisdom is supersedes language prajna. You start to move through that, pass through that barrier where it's not just words, and it's not words we think, words tied in to thinking, but one has a spontaneous um, sense of what is happening here and what is needed here. And then you can begin to like just offer it up. And I tell you, it won't fail you if you get the principles and decide which vows you will make. And if you'll tend to them through your preliminary practices, keeping unarisen, unwholesome states from arising, neutralizing unwholesome states that have arisen, making sure that you cause wholesome states to arise and that you maintain those wholesome states when they have arisen. If that means not talking to so and so, because when she starts talking, it's going to be about this. It's going to be on this topic or with this kind of shading. It's just learning how to do that, and then automatically you'll be moving in a kind of flow where um, uh, I remember Pannadipa would say all the time, because people would ask him, was he enlightened? He said, no, I'm not enlightened, but I'm not suffering. You know? And that was good enough. When you touch these spaces, and all it takes is having an experience of being in that non-suffering state of touching the bottom. You know that it is available. It does exist. It's not a part of this ordinary world, but it is a part of the universe, and that you can enter into that state, you know, and you'll start using your proven weapons. The weapons of our warfare is different, you know. And so we stop needing so many words to try to express or to explain, to make as if we're making, I'll be finishing a couple minutes, making our mind know something. We taste something, and that taste shifts the structure of appearances, so we see things differently. That you can't force, right? You can't force that. But there are things you can do that hasten it, that bring it along. So hold on to your peace over the next few days. Okay. Um, he says, I'm going to end on this, as long as you use your mind to think things over, don't even imagine that you will see your Buddha nature. I mean, now and I'm closing right there, because that could sound so like it don't even make sense, because we're so used to thinking. But the mind that created these problems is not the mind that can fix them. There is available to us um, a state that can be entered. Buddha said when he entered it, it scared him at first. And then he said, why should I be afraid of this pleasure that is not born of this world? And he said, and then I wasn't. And that was the night of his awakening. Just think about, maybe your awakening is just a stone's throw away. I'd rather think that if I'm going to think about anything. I'd rather think maybe it's just a stone's throw away. Can somebody close for me?
We freely dedicate the merit gained from our time together today to the benefit of others, of all the living beings everywhere. I am so grateful for this teaching and for the reminders of our teacher how to deal in this time. May we go forth grounded in the principles and thereby at ease and with love and in peace.